Hey everyone, it's Ed. Welcome to this video on mind mapping and Obsidian's graph. So one thing that I've seen here recently is this a little bit of confusion between what mind mapping or cognitive mapping is and what graphing is or what Obsidian does. And a lot of people call that the second brain system. So when you're talking about a second brain, it's about how things connect, how people generally in our brains connect information and make it move. Mind mapping is more about getting ideas and thoughts and a general concept and finding initial connections between things. Those are two different ways of thinking. One is a planning and a process tool used to help us get information out to be turned into something later. Think of it as an outlining process for people who may not be linear in thinking. Someone who may think and see connections as tangential, or you need to draw the connection, or you find it along the way. And that's where it does get a little similar to the way Obsidian works, but again, at a very much higher level. So this idea is as you're first thinking about a concept, as you're first beginning to really dig into some material or a thought or constructing an argument, you are trying to figure out how some of those early first connections are happening. Obsidian, on the other hand, is about you've already made some connections. You've already started really to get into the process. You may have a lot of notes on a subject. And then as you are revising and refining and changing and growing, you begin to think about, okay, what can I now connect to this thing that I already have and make it even more meaningful? Obsidian is an extremely powerful tool to allow you to do that. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to show you that. I'm going to walk you through using the Supernote Atelier app, kind of a very quick rudimentary mind map. And then we are going to jump on over to Obsidian and I'm going to walk you through very, in a quick way how that looks. And I have a lot of other videos on Obsidian and I'll put those down below and on my workflow using both platforms together. But I wanted to do this specifically to kind of show and illustrate the differences. And I'm sure I'm going to miss something. And at the end, we'll recap. And as always, please give me comments and feedback and thoughts. In the meantime, let's go ahead and jump on over and take a look at the Supernote Manta and mind mapping first. So when we're talking about mind mapping, for this discussion, I'm going to use the Supernote Nomad. I'm going to use the Atelier app to show you what I see as the difference between something like Obsidian and a traditional mind mapping approach. And right now, we're just going to focus on the mind map. It's also been called cognitive mapping. The idea is to get your thoughts down in a non-linear fashion. So you've heard of traditional outlining, but for a lot of us, it's really hard to do that bulleted outline. As a matter of fact, when I was learning how to write early on in college, they would require an outline, and I basically had to write the paper or at least write a very good draft first, go back and write the outline to submit so that I'd have something for the outline. Now, not everybody's brain works that way. Sometimes the linear approach is the best approach. For me, it wasn't. But what I'm going to do here is I want to show how the brainstorming process can work. And that's what a mind map is really for. It's for connecting those dots. In my case, I'm going to take something I know, and I'm going to just start and do a few quick things here to show you how the process would work. Let's take organizational change. So I'll put organizational change, and then I'm going to circle that. So that becomes my central idea. And I kind of messed that up a little bit, but that's okay because we can move this canvas in Atelier. So I can actually, I've already made it bigger and I can make it smaller at the same time. So we start with organizational change. And let's say now we want to talk about, okay, who are the main theorists around organizational change? So let's take and we will go with Cotter. And we'll circle Cotter. Now we've connected the dots. And then we'll go over here and we will say B&G, and that stands for Black and Gregerson. Now they each have their own theories. You have Cotter and you have Black and Gregerson. Now, let's say that Black and Gregerson have three different kind of components to their theory, which they do. So one is going to be a barrier called the failure to see. So we'll just do see. Another is going to be the failure to move. So we'll do move and then finish. We'll circle that. Those are your three barriers. And then Cotter has 8 steps, which we're not going to list all of those because this is just a simple exercise. There are his 8 steps. Let's say there's something in between the two that connects them. And there are actually a bunch of different things that can connect these two theories. But one big one is the idea of vision. Now we can draw the connecting point between the two. So hopefully what you're seeing here is when you're dealing with a mind map, if you're doing a traditional outline, and let's just move over here, what you would do would be change theory, and then you would put one Cotter, and then you list the 8 steps under that, and then you would put 2 B and G, and then you would put the 3 steps here, and then maybe you would do a third bullet that would say common or something like that, and then you would try to tie this. Well, for someone who has trouble thinking that way, this makes a lot more sense. Makes sense to me. Maybe it makes sense to you, maybe not. But again, it's a way of thinking. So here I'm thinking organizational change. There are 2 theorists, but you could also go with someone like Shine. And now you've got a third theorist. And then you could look at the connections there and how those fit. The idea being that there are a lot of different ways to deal with this complex topic. And then if you came over here, you could even, I've already put something here, but you could start saying, okay, we're talking about theory over on the right-hand side. Over on the left, maybe we can talk about interest groups, staff, employees, leaders, stakeholders, community, all of these other things that could fill in this other side of the map. So again, it's about mapping your thought process onto this particular page. And that's a mind map. And there are a lot of tools to do that. I'm doing this hand-drawn right now, but there are tools like Miro, CMAP tools, which is used a lot in adult education. And it's actually the first time I ever learned about it. I didn't hear it referred to as a mind map. I heard it called a cognitive map. And that's what it was about. It was about putting down your thought process as much as possible at that 30,000 foot view, that high level view as to what you're trying to convey. What are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to get to? What are you going to use as your basis? So that's mind mapping. I will see you here in just a minute. All right, so here we are in Obsidian, and what I want to show you and what I want to kind of convey here and look at while I'm setting this up, I want to show you how the time-lapse animation happens. What you're seeing in this bottom right-hand corner of the screen is all of my notes. So any note that I have made in Obsidian is represented here. And they have a lot of different things. So yellow tends to be the website. So that's what I've got up on the screen right now. This is my website for a lot of the work I do. The red is work. So that's all of the other stuff, my main work notes. This allows me to then see at a level, like here you'll see that I have a lot around the library. So you can see books by topics, you can see authors. And if I were to zoom into this, you would see even more. But let me show you how this connects. And this is why it's different than a mind map. So for example, if I press this button, it's going to show you a real-time graph as I'm talking about this and how it works. So think of your mind and how you're thinking about things. And as you're thinking, you start to connect them to other things. You'll see that all of these notes on the screen right now are starting to connect to one another. They're starting to build bridges and connections. They're starting to cluster around different ideas and topics and ways of knowing and by date and when they happened. The interesting part of that is it's all organic. It's all happening while you are refining a note. Now, I happen to do this using the Supernote and using Obsidian in tandem. So I take all of my notes in the Supernote and then I have them recognized in the background to text, and then I transfer them in through a plugin into Obsidian. And that's where I clean them up. So I clean them up, I add the connections manually, which is very easy to do. And then it creates what you're seeing here. And this is why the term second brain comes up. And the reason that is, and maybe I'm an outlier here, but this is the way I've always thought of a second brain, is that our brains make weird connections sometimes. We connect events and different things random, seemingly random, but it means something to us in the moment. And you'll see that the website is starting to form here outside of just the work notes. But we do, as I'm in a conversation with someone, it sparks an idea somewhere else or pulls on a memory or a thread that weaves through. And I want to connect that. And I do. And I mention to them that, hey, did you know that so and so does this? That connection is something that, quite frankly, computers have a hard time doing. They can see the surface level connection. We, as humans, with the biggest supercomputer you're ever going to get, which is the brain, we make those connections more organically or naturally. That's what's really unique about this. And here on the top, you'll see that this is my blog. And if you zoom in on the graph, you'll see all of the different notes that are connected here. And then you can pull that around and take a look at all of the different places. And, the graph's interactive too, so you can click on something and it will take you there. I should have done that in the other window. So let me go back. There's my graph again. If I go here into this other window and I click, it's going to pull it up on this side over here. And now you'll see there are other things connected. Now, one thing I want you to look at the bottom graph really quickly when I add in attachments. So attachments are anything from images to PDFs, things that you've attached outside of a note. And you'll see that this thing just gets huge. You'll also see that there are far more things not connected yet that I need to go in and do. But just look at how many different things are there. And if I hover over things, so this is the department that I'm the head of at Valpo, and just how many different places this connects to other things on campus. Really an amazing tool. And it does something that, quite frankly, things like Notebook LM and AI just aren't capable of yet. And it's not that the tool is doing that. It's that the human, me, I'm doing that. I'm making these connections manually. The cool thing is that if you look as I scroll here over on the left, let's say I wanted to refer to the home page or the things I use, because I've used that a few times. Please visit my, and then what you'll do is you do a quick double bracket and then you say things I use, and it populates that. And when I close that bracket, now you'll see here in the top right, there's now a connection that has been made to the things I use. So the idea that this is A, local, and B, that you can connect it that fast. So as you're writing something, you are making live connections. And then if you want to delete that connection, you just delete it. Now it's gone and you see it disappeared from the graph. Again, it's not about mind mapping. This is a different thing. Mind mapping is about brainstorming, getting your ideas down. Now, you can use this as a little bit of that tool, but this goes far deeper. This looks to past, present, and future state. Future state piece could be used a little bit like a mind map. Say it's a different blog completely because it'll just be easier to do. Astronaut and school teacher Sally Ride is a hero to many, me included. What you're noticing here is you notice how these are a lighter color and this is a dark color. This is telegraphing that this can be a new note. So as I go through this and I'm writing all of these things and I'm thinking on the fly and I'm like, oh, I need to follow up on that. Or maybe I need to add a note about somebody or something, or I need to expand on this later. I've now created the framework. Here it is. It is right here. Now, if I were to click on Sally Ride, I have a new note that I can do something with. And I could even here, if I wanted to, I could go to a template and I could say, okay, let's see if Sally Ride has written any books. And I don't know, I've never looked that up. Let's say I wanted to do that. And I could turn this into an author template. So what you see here now is one of my pre-selected templates. And at the bottom, you see where this was linked to. It was in the Supernote A6X2 as a reader platform. And then I can go back, and what I'll do is I'm going to delete that. So let's go back here. I'm going to delete that note. It takes me back. That note's no longer there. I want to take this out because I don't want to end up having something on my website that I accidentally put in, and you'll see it took it away. But you'll also notice that this image that's here, it shows that it's saved in my folder, and it's a really useful tool. And I've got other videos. I'll dump them down in the description on Obsidian and how to use it, or at least how I use it. But there are a lot of people out there doing these different things, and it's a lot of fun. It really is an intuitive tool that allows you to do something in a non-linear way, but still organized. And, there's debate on whether or not you should have any file structure at all. But if you look here on the left, I have a lot of file structure. So I am highly organized in the way that I set up the files and folders. Then what I do is I allow the connections to develop organically. So yes, I'm going to have a blog folder. I'm going to have the articles in it. I'm going to have different things the way that I'd like it from an organizational perspective. But when I'm within these notes and when I'm typing, and if I want to jump out to something, or if I want to jump to a different blog, or if I want to add in a person or tie in a book, I can do that. And I can do it without having to add it to another folder or move it. If it's already there, it exists. If it isn't there, I create it and then go back and move it into that folder. There's so much you can do with this platform. It really is amazing. Don't want to go too much more in the weeds on this. Just wanted to try and clarify the difference between the two. And hopefully this video's kind of helped make that clear. It's not about, one is more about brainstorming and getting ready to go and do something, or getting your thoughts down on paper. The other one is about truly making meaningful, deep connections in a way that is a little bit more free-flowing. Thank you for hanging in there with this video. Thanks for being with me on it. There had been some questions about these two different approaches. What is Obsidian? What is mind mapping? How is AI dealing with this? Whether or not Notebook LM, now that they have a mind mapping function, could replace tools like Obsidian and Notion. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. Hopefully this video's brought a little bit of perspective there. Mind mapping or cognitive mapping is a very useful tool for brainstorming, connecting the dots at a very high level, getting your topics down, getting your central ideas formed, and kind of connecting between those subtopics. It is not what the graph view shows you, and quite frankly, the graph view has limited use, but it's a good visual representation of what's happening in Obsidian. This idea that you can connect all of these things together in seemingly innocuous ways, but becomes very powerful. As you're typing, you're like, oh, I need to do this, or I need to think about this, or I need to connect this person with that person, or this department with that department. And you just tag it all with this very simple markdown language. And before you know it, you have a central hub and a stream of consciousness flowing into these notes, and they become a living, breathing thing. And not a thing as in an AI that's doing the work for you, but a program that is helping you do the thing that your brain does naturally, which is make, store, and express connection. But anyway, thank you all so much again. Please feel free to check me out on Patreon, become a member over there. We do a lot of cool things. Check us out on Discord. If you are a YouTube or Patreon member, join the YouTube channel as a subscriber. Would love to have you here. Press that like button, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you see a big difference? Maybe I'm in the minority here. Night and day difference between these two things, but you may have a different view. Share that view down in the comments. I reply to everybody and I really enjoy those conversations. Until next time, I will see you soon and keep on moving forward.